Since her passing on Tuesday, a petition to rename Nashville International Airport after Dolly Parton is now approaching 150,000 signatures, growing in popularity. But a petition alone obviously can't change the airport's name. So what would it take to turn Dolly Parton International Airport from an idea into reality? WSMV investigative reporter Stacey Cameron joins us now to explain there are possible paths forward here, Stacey.
That's right. And well, on paper, there are actually two possible paths. The Metropolitan Nashville Airport Authority could approve the name change, or lawmakers could try to do what one state representative attempted last year and change it themselves at the legislature. So last year, State Representative Todd Warner, a Chapel Hill Republican, introduced a bill to rename BNA Trump International Airport. That bill would have required the airport authority to change the airport signs, contracts, trademarks, and governing documents, but it never became law, failing in the House Transportation Committee. But now the airport authority also has another option. Its board could approve the change itself. And at least one Metro Council member, Russ Bradford, you saw him there, says he's preparing a resolution supporting the proposed Dolly Parton International Airport name change and asking the authority to adopt it. But there's a wrinkle to that. The airport authority has a rule that says someone must be dead for 2 years before a building, space, facility, or street can be named for them. But it's not clear that rule applies to the whole airport. Well, as it turns out, that may not matter anyway, because I spoke with Representative Warner, who tells me he's going to reintroduce his legislation this session calling for the name change to Dolly Parton International Airport.
My phone has blown up. People asking me to reintroduce that legislation and changing the name to Dolly Parton International Airport. And I'm willing to do that. Dolly loves people. She loves the children of this state and this nation, and she has done so much for the state. She's been an economic driver for the state. I think I read earlier in the week a report where she had given away some 300 million books. And she's just done so much. She's a caring person, and she really loves people, and I think it would be very appropriate.
And Warner says he believes his bill will have overwhelming bipartisan support. And he spoke with the legislature's legal team last year, and they came to the conclusion that the General Assembly does have the power to change the airport's name. Now, the Federal Aviation Administration would have to approve that name change too, but right now in Tennessee anyway, it seems the question isn't whether there's support for renaming the airport to Dolly Parton International. The real question is which government body will try to make that happen. We'll wait and see. For WSMV4, I'm investigative reporter Stacey Cameron.